He looked her in the eye and said, "I can't marry you." The word sliced through the air, and as she froze in place, the billionaire stood up and walked toward her. "Then she's mine. Before we dive in, I need to know something. Have you ever been left at the altar? What would you have done? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you've ever fought for love, hit that subscribe button. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The church was a cathedral of elegance, a sea of white roses and crystal chandeliers that shimmered like stars. Guests filled the pews, their murmurs quiet against the soft strains of the organ. It should have been perfect. Her perfect day. Her perfect moment. But as the music played and the heavy wooden doors slowly opened, there was no joy in her chest. There was nothing but a gnawing emptiness. Lily stood at the altar, holding her bouquet tightly, her hands trembling slightly. The fabric of her dress felt too tight, like the weight of 1,000 eyes pressing down on her. But that wasn't what bothered her. What bothered her was Alex. He stood there, looking at her with an unreadable expression, as though he was seeing her for the first time. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel like the man who had promised to love her forever. He took a step forward, and she noticed the slight tremor in his hands as they reached for his tie. He couldn't meet her eyes. She could feel the air between them thicken with something cold and heavy. "Lily," he began, his voice low, almost distant. "I can't marry you." Her heart stopped. Her mind struggled to process the words. It was like the world had suddenly tilted on its axis, leaving her in freefall. For a second, she stood there, unable to breathe, unable to speak. Her mouth was dry, her vision blurry as she searched his face for any sign of warmth, of the man she thought she knew. But there was nothing. Alex continued, his words coming out in a rush. "I'm sorry, but I can't do this. I'm not ready." The words echoed in her mind, growing louder, more insistent, as though they were being carved into her heart with a razor-sharp knife. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. But her feet were frozen in place. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be real. She felt the tears threatening to spill, but she refused to let them fall. Not in front of everyone. Not now. Alex turned his back to her, a move that should have been more subtle, but it wasn't. It was deliberate. It was like he had made his decision long before this moment. And then, there was a shift. The crowd went silent, as though they were all holding their breath. Lily's eyes darted around the room, trying to make sense of the chaos she felt inside. That was when she saw him. A man she had never met, a stranger who had been sitting quietly at the back of the church, stood up. His figure was tall, commanding, and the way he moved toward her felt like he was cutting through the tension with every step. The man didn't hesitate. He didn't look around for anyone's approval. He didn't care for the confusion in the room or the questioning gazes of the guests. He simply walked up to the altar, stood beside her, and spoke in a voice that was clear, firm, and undeniably confident. "Then she's mine," he said. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. Lily's breath caught in her throat. She could feel the gaze of every single person in that room, eyes filled with curiosity, shock, and disbelief. The billionaire didn't look at the groom. He didn't need to. His attention was on Lily, and only on Lily. He was a stranger, but something in his presence made her feel like she had known him forever. She turned to him, her heart racing, her thoughts tumbling over each other. Why was he doing this? Who was he? And why did she suddenly feel like she needed to hear his next words? Her mind was a blur of questions, but there was no time for answers. The moment had already shifted. Her life, her wedding, her future, all of it had just changed. But what she didn't know was that this was only the beginning of a story she never saw coming. Lily's hands shook as she looked up at the man who had just made the most outrageous declaration. He stood beside her, tall and powerful, like he had every right to be there. But she didn't know him. She didn't even know his name. The crowd was still in shock, whispers filling the air as they tried to process what had just happened. Her eyes flickered to Alex, the man she was supposed to marry. He stood frozen, his face a mixture of anger and confusion, his expression darkened by the humiliation of the moment. But she didn't care about Alex anymore. Not in that moment. Her focus was on the stranger beside her, the billionaire who had just declared her his. Who was he? Why was he doing this? What did he want from her? His name didn't come to her mind, and frankly, she didn't care to ask. The last thing she needed was more questions, more confusion, more people to deal with. She needed answers. She needed space. She needed to get out of there. But instead, the man next to her took a step forward, closing the gap between them. His voice was soft, but commanding. "Come with me," he said, his eyes locking with hers, his gaze steady and unwavering. For a moment, Lily couldn't find her voice. She just stared at him, the words not quite reaching her throat. What?" she finally managed to stammer. "Who are you?" "I'm someone who can help you," he replied, his voice low but filled with an assurance she couldn't ignore. "Let's get you out of here." Lily's heart pounded in her chest. Every instinct told her to refuse, to walk away from this stranger and try to make sense of the chaos surrounding her. But she couldn't bring herself to move. It was as if his presence had taken over the space, filling her with a strange sense of calm, one she hadn't felt in hours, maybe even days. The guests were staring, their eyes wide, some in disbelief, others whispering among themselves. But Lily didn't care about them. Not now. She looked back at Alex, hoping for some sign, some explanation. But he had already turned away, heading for the back of the church without a second glance. Her breath caught in her throat. Was this really happening? Was her life unraveling before her eyes? "Don't do this," she whispered, but it wasn't directed at the stranger. It was for herself. Her mind was racing, but her heart felt like it had already broken into pieces. She needed something familiar, something stable. But there was nothing familiar here. Not anymore. "Come with me," the billionaire repeated, his tone firm, yet oddly gentle. He took a step closer, almost like he knew exactly what she needed. He didn't ask permission, didn't hesitate. He just reached for her hand, and before she could protest, he gently but decisively led her down the aisle. Lily didn't resist. She couldn't. Her feet moved on their own, as if his calm authority was pulling her along. The sound of heels tapping against the marble floor echoed in the silence as they made their way to the back of the church. When they reached the doors, the billionaire turned to her. His eyes softened for a fraction of a second. "You don't need to worry. You're safe now." Lily blinked, still in a haze, still processing everything. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. What was she supposed to say to a man who had just stepped in at the most impossible moment? The outside air hit her as they stepped into the courtyard, cool and fresh against her skin. She could smell the faint scent of rain on the breeze, but the clouds hadn't quite opened yet. The world outside felt distant, unreal, like a place where none of this had ever happened. The billionaire led her to a sleek black car parked near the entrance. He didn't speak as he opened the door for her, waiting until she slid inside before following her in. The moment the door clicked shut, Lily finally found her voice. "I don't understand," she said quietly. "Who are you?" The billionaire's gaze was steady, his expression unreadable. "My name is Caleb. I've been watching you." Lily's stomach turned. "You've been watching me?" "Not in a creepy way," Caleb added with a slight smirk. I knew who you were. What you were going through." Lily's mind was still spinning. She didn't know what to feel. He hadn't answered her question. He hadn't explained himself. He had just acted, and now she was here, in a car with a man she didn't know, leaving behind a wedding she would never forget. Before she could say anything else, Caleb turned to her, his voice softer now. "You don't have to worry about anything. I'll take care of it." But what did that mean? What did he want from her? Her heart still ached for the man who had rejected her, for the life that was slipping through her fingers. But now, there was something else, a spark of curiosity. What was Caleb's real reason for stepping in? The answer to that question would come, but Lily wasn't sure if she was ready to hear it, or if it would change everything she thought she knew about herself. The car hummed softly, its engine the only sound in the air. The world outside seemed far away, distant like a dream. Caleb didn't speak for the first few minutes, and Lily didn't either. Her mind was still trying to catch up with everything that had just happened. She hadn't expected her life to change in one instant. She hadn't expected him, the stranger who had taken her hand and pulled her away from the wreckage of her wedding. But there he was, sitting across from her in the back of the car, staring out the window, his face unreadable. Lily couldn't stop thinking about Alex. She couldn't stop thinking about how he'd looked at her with those cold eyes, his words sinking into her chest like ice. "I can't marry you." The hurt was still there, raw and open. But there was something else too, something she couldn't deny. Curiosity. And something deeper, more dangerous. Attraction. The man sitting next to her had done the impossible. He had intervened. He had stepped in at the moment when she had needed help the most. He had been there when no one else was. But why? Why had he chosen to save her from the humiliation of being left at the altar? Why had he spoken for her, acted like he had a right to make a claim on her life? Her thoughts swirled, but they were interrupted when the car pulled into a quiet, gated estate. The iron gates creaked open, and the car rolled slowly up a long driveway lined with trees. The house that came into view was massive, too massive for a single person to live in, she thought. It looked like something out of a movie. She had never seen a house like this before. It was the kind of place where the rich and powerful lived, the kind of place that people like her would never dream of stepping into. The car came to a stop, and Caleb turned to her. His eyes were softer now, but there was still something about him that was unsettling. Maybe it was the way he seemed to always be in control, always a step ahead. "You're safe here," he said, his voice quieter now, more like the man who had stepped in to protect her earlier. Lily didn't know how to respond. She didn't know if she should thank him, or if she should ask him why he had brought her here. The questions felt too heavy, too uncertain. As she stepped out of the car, Caleb followed her, leading her toward the grand entrance. The house loomed above them, its stone exterior cold and imposing. It felt like stepping into a different world. A world she didn't belong to. Inside, the house was just as imposing. Massive ceilings, chandeliers, and walls lined with art that looked expensive and untouchable. She was overwhelmed by the sheer size of it, and for the first time in a long time, she felt small. "Come on in," Caleb said, breaking the silence. "I'll get you something to drink. You must be exhausted." Lily nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. She was lost in the maze of his house, in the strange new reality that Caleb had thrust her into. She followed him through the halls, her thoughts still on Alex. What was he doing now? Was he at the altar, explaining to their families why he couldn't marry her? Was he already moving on? The thought made her chest tighten, but she pushed it away. She didn't have time to think about him anymore. Not now. As Caleb opened a door, revealing a spacious living room, he turned to her. "You can stay here for as long as you need." Lily glanced at him, her eyes sharp. "I didn't ask for this," she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "I know you didn't," Caleb replied, his tone steady. "But sometimes, people don't get to choose when their lives change. They just have to go with it." Lily looked down at her hands, gripping the hem of her dress. "Why are you doing this? Why did you step in today?" Caleb paused, his gaze flickering to hers. For a moment, the mask he wore slipped. "Because I saw you. I saw someone who needed a way out, and I couldn't let you stay there, in that moment. You deserve more than what he was offering." She swallowed hard. His words felt like both a lifeline and a trap. She didn't need someone to rescue her. She had always prided herself on being independent, on handling things on her own. But this was different. Caleb wasn't just anyone. He was someone who had taken a stand when no one else did. But why? Lily's heart raced, and her mind spun with questions, but she didn't have the answers. She only knew one thing: this man was starting to change everything she thought she knew about herself. The pull between them was undeniable, but Lily had no idea what Caleb's true intentions were, or if she was ready to let him unravel everything she'd built. She didn't know if she could trust him. She didn't know if she even wanted to. But when have you ever felt caught between wanting to trust someone and fearing what it might cost you? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever been in a situation where trust felt like a risk. Let's see how this unfolds. The next few days felt like a blur. Lily had found herself living in Caleb's massive estate, a place that seemed to be straight out of a magazine. The kind of home that spoke of old money and power. But none of it mattered. The walls, the artwork, the rooms that stretched on forever, they all felt distant, like a dream she wasn't meant to be in. Caleb had given her space, allowing her to settle in, but his presence was always there, looming in the background. He didn't pressure her to talk, but when she looked up, he was always watching. And that was the problem. There was a part of Lily that wanted to resist him, to stand firm in her independence. She wasn't some damsel to be saved, and she didn't need him, not really. She had been fine before, hadn't she? But then there was that other part of her, the part that was raw and vulnerable, the part that wanted to lean into his protection, to let him take control and make the pain of the past few days disappear. Caleb had a way of making her feel like everything she had been through didn't matter. He never mentioned the wedding or Alex, never spoke of the heartbreak that was still fresh in her mind. He just offered her calm, steadiness, a promise of safety. And that was exactly what she wanted, wasn't it? But now, everything was changing. She could feel it. The pressure was building, and it wasn't just the house, or the fact that she was trapped in this strange, beautiful world with a man she barely knew. No, it was something deeper. The way Caleb's eyes lingered on her, the way his voice softened when he spoke her name, the way he seemed to see straight through her walls, to the core of who she was. Lily had never been one to let her guard down, especially not with men. But with Caleb, she found herself doing things she never thought she would. She found herself questioning everything she thought she knew. She stood in the kitchen one evening, making herself a cup of tea, when she felt his presence behind her. The air shifted in a way that made her skin tingle. "You look like you're about to run away," Caleb said quietly, his voice almost a whisper. Lily stiffened, gripping the edge of the counter. She hadn't expected him to come in. She hadn't expected him to say anything. But now that he had, the words stuck in her throat. "I'm not running away," she replied, turning to face him. "I'm just trying to figure things out." His gaze was steady, intense. "What are you figuring out, exactly?" She swallowed hard. The truth was, she didn't know. What was there to figure out? Her life had just been turned upside down, and now she was here, in a strange house with a man who had stepped in when no one else had. The uncertainty of it all was overwhelming. "I don't know what to think anymore," Lily admitted, her voice shaking slightly. "Everything feels so uncertain. And I don't know if I can trust you." Caleb took a step closer, his eyes softening. "I'm not asking for your trust, Lily. Not yet. But I'll earn it. And I'll give you what you need." She shook her head, turning away, her hands gripping the edge of the counter harder. "What do I need, Caleb? What do I even need right now?" He was silent for a moment before speaking again, this time with more certainty. "You need time. You need space. But you also need someone who won't let you fall apart. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm not going to let you face this alone." Her heart twisted, and for the first time in days, she allowed herself to feel something other than confusion or pain. She felt the warmth of his words settle over her like a blanket. But then, the doubts crept in again. Was this just him being kind? Or was there something more? Was he only offering to help because he thought he could fix her, or because he wanted something in return? She wanted to ask him. She wanted to demand the truth from him, to make him tell her why he was really doing this. But before she could speak, Caleb took another step forward. His hand reached out, resting gently on her arm. "You're not alone in this. Not with me." Lily's breath caught in her throat. His words held an undeniable weight, and for a moment, everything felt clear. But as soon as the clarity came, it was gone, replaced by the same question that had been plaguing her since the day she met him. "Why?" Before she could speak, Caleb's phone buzzed on the counter. He pulled away, his expression shifting. "I'll be right back," he said, his voice dropping a little. He stepped toward the other room, leaving her standing there, her mind racing. As Lily stood there alone, a part of her felt like she was on the verge of something huge. The pull between her and Caleb was undeniable, but with each passing moment, the truth seemed further out of reach. And just when she thought she might get the answer she needed, the doorbell rang, breaking the fragile moment. But the arrival of someone unexpected would force Lily to face a truth she wasn't ready for, and it would change everything. Lily stood in front of him, the silence between them unbearable. She could feel her heart racing, but the decision she was about to make would change everything. Have you ever had to make a choice that felt like it could change the entire course of your life? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to decide whether to risk everything for love. Let's see how this all ends. The days that followed had been a blur of quiet conversations and stolen glances. Lily had tried to keep her distance, to remain calm and composed. But the more time she spent with Caleb, the more impossible that became. The lines between trust and desire blurred, and every passing moment seemed to pull her deeper into the storm she couldn't escape. Her thoughts kept returning to the one question that had been hanging in the air since the moment Caleb stepped in at the altar. Why? Why had he done this? Why had he taken her away from everything she thought she knew, from the life she thought she had planned? She stood in front of the window now, watching as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the estate. The quiet hum of the evening wrapped around her, but her heart was anything but calm. She hadn't spoken to Caleb all afternoon. He had given her space, just as he promised. But now, she needed answers. She needed to know why she felt the way she did when she was with him. As she turned away from the window, she saw him standing in the doorway. He didn't speak right away, just watched her with those eyes that always seemed to see too much. "Lily," he finally said, his voice soft but steady. "I know you're still figuring things out. I know you don't know how to trust me yet. But I need you to understand something." Her heart pounded in her chest as she looked at him, her mouth dry. "What is it?" "I'm not asking for anything from you," Caleb said, his voice unwavering. "I'm not asking for you to fall in love with me, or to rush into anything you're not ready for. But I need you to know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And if you're willing to give this a chance, give us a chance. I won't let you go." Lily felt a wave of emotion surge through her. There was something in his voice, something raw, something real, that made her heart twist. She had never heard anyone speak to her like that before, not with such certainty, such honesty. But the fear was still there. The fear that if she let herself fall, she might lose everything. "I don't know if I can," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't know if I can trust anyone again after what happened with Alex." Caleb stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "I'm not asking you to forget what happened with him. But what I'm offering isn't the same. This is different. And I'm not asking for you to make a decision today. I'm asking you to trust me enough to let me show you." The room felt smaller, the air thicker. She could feel the weight of his words, the quiet promise in them. He wasn't asking for her to love him. He wasn't asking for her to rush into anything. But what he was offering, what he was asking for, was a chance. A chance to start something new, to rebuild something that had been broken. And in that moment, Lily realized something. She hadn't been running from Alex. She had been running from herself, from the fear of opening up to someone again. "I'm scared," she admitted, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "I don't know if I can do this." Caleb reached out, gently cupping her face in his hand. "You don't have to do anything alone. Not anymore. I'm not going to push you. But if you let me, I'll be here. Every step of the way." The simple, honest truth of his words cracked something inside of her. Her breath caught in her throat, and the tears she had been holding back for days suddenly spilled over. "I'm not perfect, Lily," Caleb continued, his voice gentle but firm. "But I know what I want. And I want you." Lily's heart ached as she looked into his eyes. She had fought this, tried to push it away, but now she couldn't anymore. The pull between them was too strong, too undeniable. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. With a shaky breath, Lily nodded. I want to try. I'm willing to try." A slow smile spread across Caleb's face. He stepped closer, closing the distance between them, and gently brushed his lips against hers. It wasn't a kiss of urgency, but one of promise, of something real, something that had the potential to heal what had been broken. When they pulled away, Caleb looked at her, his expression soft. "Thank you." Lily smiled, her heart full of hope she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. "I don't know where this is going, but I'm ready to find out." Do you believe in second chances? Drop a heart in the comments if this story touched you. Sometimes, the right person finds you when you least expect it. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.